Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Let's give everybody a second to pop in. All right. Make sure my sound is off there. How are we? Happy Monday. Look what's no longer on the floor. And who's always in his spot. There we go. All right, everybody. Happy Monday. And I'm so excited to dive into this now what exploration with you. So much deliciousness to explore. So if you are popping on, say hello in the comments. Tell us whether you participated in the challenge, because some of you were like, Elena, I've just kind of been watching your things. Maybe I've been reading your emails, but I haven't really done the challenge. That's okay. I still love you, and you are still welcome to be here. And I'm still going to make you work because that's what I do, right? I nudge. I offer you some nudges. Or maybe you watched everything last week and you read every single email or somewhere in between. What I would love for you to take a moment right now and check in with is, take a breath. Notice how that feels. That's what I'd like you to check in with. I know it's not what you were expecting, right? But take a moment on this Monday to just come into you and breathe, right? We're not going to have spent the entire week last week connecting to our body and now be like, body, who are you? So as you check in with yourself and take a moment of breath, however that feels delicious to you, just notice what is here for you right now in your body. And then put that into the comments and say hello. I'm going to give you a moment to just breathe, to get rooted in this present moment. And share with us, when you're ready to open your eyes, how that felt, where you are in this present moment. Because if I can offer anything, it's the idea that everything that we explored last week in the Inhabit Your Joy challenge, and frankly, everything that I do in the work with my clients, is about building practices and then coming back to them intentionally over time to move into the space of inhabiting your joy, not just during a challenge, not just when your coach is looking, but every day, and to allow yourself to be rooted and anchored and curious by these challenges. Good morning, Mary Beth. A little peace, a little joy, and a little happy anticipation. Well, yes, to all of that. Hooray for that. So there is a quote. I have so many things to share with you today, but I want to invite you to really consider. And friends, if you hear noise in the background, I just didn't plan very well today. So because one of my non-negotiables is somebody else cleaning the house every 2 weeks, that's happening right now. So there we go. So I apologize and don't, because it's one of those things that's important in terms for me to create space for what's on the inside. So one of the quotes that I kind of want to frame this idea of that we get to keep coming back over and over again to these practices, that this isn't a light switch, is this quote by a yogic sage, Patanjali, who says, any practice done over a period of time with love in your heart, done consistently over a period of time with love in your heart, produces results. So consistency with love in your heart produces results, right? These practices, everything that we went through last week, you get to keep coming back and make them yours. And the reason that I share that is because when we start thinking about now what, I want to frame this context of now what into the idea that nothing that we're doing is a short-term fix. You might get a little short-term bump, a feeling of peace, a feeling of something. But the now what, the integration, is remembering that every single day you have the choice to come back to these practices, to yourself, to you and your body as your home base. And the reason that I know that that is the key, that it actually isn't in your mind, that mindset, which is a powerful thing, and inspiration and motivation, all powerful things, will not get you to the long-term transformation that you seek. It just won't. It'll get you started. But that there's another key that you get to choose every single day. And to introduce you to that key, I want to share a story with you. And some of you have heard this story and some of you haven't, so you're welcome. It's the story. So years ago, this key showed up for me. This key that it's not about what's in my brain, that there is another key to inhabiting your joy. I remember my dad, I'm going to backtrack even more. My dad once said to me that I was that person who could achieve anything that I put my mind to. And this key is what taught me that it had nothing to do with my mind. So come back with me and imagine a time when I'm still a classroom teacher. This is years ago, doesn't matter, 2004. And I just started my day at school and I get a message to call my doctor's office. So I get on the phone and the doctor says, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're pregnant. And my reaction might surprise you because at that moment, I'm angry and I start crying. Big, huge, messy tears. This should be the most exciting moment of my life. My entire life, I had dreamed of two things, becoming a mom and becoming a teacher. And here it was, delivered to me through this phone message. But this news was petrifying because I had been told over and over again that this was something I would never be able to realize, that it would never be possible. For years, I had heard that I would never be able to get pregnant, and that if I did, it wouldn't be a viable pregnancy. So my doctor heard my sobs, all my tears, and knew that these were not happy tears. And after a moment, he said something that I've never, ever forgotten. And he said, you have a choice to make. You could grieve, or you could choose to celebrate until the day you can't. As soon as he said it, my entire body took over, and I knew I was going to celebrate, that I was going to choose to be on this journey no matter what, without any certainty. I share this phone call with you because it's a big deal in contrast to a phone call that I'd received 6 years before when I had handled a call very, very differently. Because on that day, 6 years earlier, I was in my bedroom apartment, my bedroom inside my apartment, words, and the phone rang. And it was my oncologist. The pieces start coming together. And I don't actually know what he said. The words are totally a blur to me, but the message was very, very clear. My cancer was back. My Hodgkin's disease that he had once described as like a bread and butter cancer. You're young, you're healthy, we got this. It was back. I'd been down this road before. The first time I was optimistic, I was always hopeful, but in that moment, I was angry. And the room went black. And I felt myself falling into this deep, dark hole where it was as if I was in my own personal war room. And so what did I do? I spent the next 6 months doing everything I possibly could to protect myself and survive cancer. Not a bad way to go, right? And I did, I survived. But something else happened along the way. In those in all of those years from that day when I found out that I had recurred to that second phone call when the doctor gave me that choice, I was in survival mode, getting through the day, hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it. And I was also looking over my shoulder, wanting to move forward, but always keeping myself behind a wall of always wondering, what if a cold was a symptom of a recurrence? What if it was going to come back? When was the other shoe going to drop? All that changed when I made this decision on that phone call with my doctor. And as easy as that choice felt, friends, I need you to know I had no idea where to begin, how to celebrate. No idea. So I took it one step, one day at a time. And that is the key, my friends. That is the now what to writing this new chapter in your life. We're not ignoring the old chapters. We're not ignoring the old wall, but we are making a decision to take the power and own your joy one day at a time. And let's be very clear, you do not have to have gone through a cancer journey. Because real talk, so many of us go through big and little challenging moments every single day, difficult moments, right? We make choices every day. And so the first step to this now what is to decide that you don't want to be stuck anymore. To decide that you are going to take this step forward, that doorway that you created space for, you're going to open it. You might look through it. You might take that first step and then that second step. And we're going to talk about how to do that today, because this is the secret. This is where you inhabit your joy and become fully alive in your life. So, as I pause here and take a sip of water, what I would love to know is what comes up for you? What sticks out to you, right? When you hear that you get to choose this every single day or on the days. Because look, on some days, our choice might be different, but that's okay because it's about every single day. So as I sip, what thoughts come up? What noticings do you have? This exploration is a path. And the choice that you get to make to integrate this challenge and these practices and this wisdom that you started to allow to emerge is a path where you will find yourself on any given day in perhaps a different place. So why did I start us with a breath and inviting you to get rooted? Because on any given day, your energy, your heart, your wisdom might be at a slightly different place in your own path. And that's okay. We want to honor where you are today, not where you were yesterday, certainly not where you were a year ago, and not where you want to be this afternoon, 5 days from now, any of those things. Yes, that can help inform us. But we want to start with where you are. So I'm going to share 5 steps along this path, and this to help you at any given point locate yourself and take the step from where you are. So Mary Beth says, choosing to celebrate until you have a reason not to is a different way of thinking for you. I've always felt that you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Absolutely, Mary Beth, right? And I think that's how a lot of us live. And so making this decision, and celebrate is a really loaded word that some people really struggle with, I won't lie. And I use it very intentionally. Because to celebrate, some of you, I've started posting all sorts of things about celebration today because my heart's message today was celebrate. That I don't have to wait for all the dotted lines, to, you know what I mean, to be crossed, dotted, whatever, right? I don't need certain things to happen for me to celebrate. I get to celebrate right now. And I was reminded of this phone call. I'm reminded of this phone call every single day, frankly, every time I look at my now 17-year-old daughter, right? Because I still get to celebrate until the day I can't, because she's now 17. But it's this idea of, what if we don't have to wait for the other shoe to drop? Because there's always going to be another shoe. And we also don't need to be defined by that. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, Mary Beth. Yeah. So let's talk about, for this path, right? How, and let me say a few other things. On this path, you might notice that there are some comfort zone places for you. Some places that you're like, ooh, I automatically do that. I go there. Fabulous. There might be some other places on this path that you're like, ooh, yeah, I don't go there very often. So it's tools in your toolkit, and it's a reminder that A, this path isn't linear, and B, it's about noticing where you are and then taking that step. Because those walls, right? I talk about walls, but I also love to talk about weeds because I love gardening, which is funny because I was never a gardener, but now to me, there's something so magical and beautiful about planting and watching and cultivating and tending and then being surprised at what emerges. But the thing with gardening is that weeds are this magical thing that even when you think you've done all the weeding, they still find a way to grow. And that doesn't mean they're bad. It just means, oh, I have to come back and I have to tend here, right? And so weeds grow, walls go up. Every single day, we can choose to see the wall, to see the weed, and say, okay, what do I need here to be able to create a doorway or a window? Maybe it starts with a window, right? So these 5 places on this path give you access points to notice where the walls have shown up and to start, or to continue rather, to turn those walls into doorways and then to walk through them. And we're going to talk about, there was a really great question that Christina asked last week about, okay, but at what point do we do? We can't be in the energy all the time. And I might argue that on some days. And I also know that most of us are kind of type A and like to do. It's who we are. And so this isn't about not doing. Let me be very clear. So number 1 on this roadmap, this is where we were most of last week, in your body, right? To be really rooted with your body as your compass, your body as your home base. This is the place where you notice that maybe you're tired or depleted or overthinking or stuck. And when you come back to your body, whether it's through your breath, through a child's pose, through a supine twist, right? To notice what you're holding on to. Any of those shapes in your body, that's where you can reconnect to the wellspring of energy that's inside you. And that's where you start to lift kind of the veil of the heaviness and create space. But the body and coming back there is always my home base. It's always where I check in as I continue to integrate. And when I notice that I'm feeling a little bit like this, how's that for a feeling? I come back to my body. And it's not bad to feel like this, but my brain tells me it is. So I come back into my body and it reminds me of where I am, and then I can make decisions. Okay, so the body is your number one place. And I want to share that. So, one of the things that I love to do is create mind body experiences for my clients. And so, in Unleashed, which is the 6 month experience of deliciousness that I get to lead twice a year, this past round, or this current round, once a month, we have been going through this groove experience, short 15-minute groove sessions. And groove is a style of movement that I like to describe as dance meets yoga meets your five and skipping around the playground. And this master teacher, Heather Winia, comes in, meets us on Zoom once a month, and we go through this 15-minute groove session. And what's interesting is some of the women in the group loved this from the beginning, and some were like, meh, groove, because you're on Zoom and you're right. It's we just had our second to last group session with Heather last Friday. And what's interesting is one of the women, several of the women in the group were super honest about it. In the past, like if I knew there was going to be a group session, I might have given myself permission to be late or skipped or kind of just turned the camera off and, sat down and done something else. But a few of them shared that by continuing to show up and allowing themselves to feel whatever the theme we're working on in their body through the music, suddenly they felt lighter. They were allowing themselves to be seen. One of them even recorded herself on video dancing because she just felt it so much in her body. Right? And so there's just this reminder that coming back and tending to your body as a regular ongoing practice is, if that's all you take away from our week together, my work here is done. So in your body, and that could be movement, it could be stillness, it could be anything, but it's allowing yourself to feel your breath, to feel the sensations in your body. Okay, that was number one. Number two, priorities and boundaries. Now, women often come to me, all my clients very frequently come to me saying that they're not sure, they don't prioritize themselves, right? And there's this idea that most of us have when we think about prioritizing ourselves and boundaries in terms of what we want to keep out or say no to. And I want you to know that yes, that's important. And the more important boundary is actually what you want to create space for on the inside, right? So I love these questions of what matters, what doesn't, who am I, right? And what do I need to, what space do I need to have so that I can expand? And so that's this idea of creating space for this internal boundary. It's, so if you think of, does anybody, remember the like bubbles that kids blow with the wand, right? Bubble. Imagine one that's life size, as big as you, and you blow it and it's all around you. And so outside of you, there's this bubble. It protects you from the stuff that you want to keep out, yes. But imagine really, really honoring and prioritizing this internal space of what you want to keep in. That's the boundary. And when we come back and check in with that, that's a beautiful place to play. So noticing, right, how are you prioritizing that space? So that's kind of step number 2 on this path, right? The body, this idea of prioritizing and boundaries, and really, really devoting yourself to that inner boundary of what you want to create space for. The third is hope and pleasure. And there's a quote, I have to find who it's by, where she says, hope is a discipline. And I want you to consider, or I'm going to invite you to consider, that we have lived a lot of our lives behind walls and behind closed doors. right? And even when we start creating these doors, we tell ourselves, oh, now is not a good time to open it, right? I would ask a lot of you who thought about what they want to bring forward over on Friday, over the weekend, throughout last week. Has it appeared in your brain to say, oh, but now isn't a good time? I have to do X, Y, or Z first, right? The brain is a sneaky, sneaky thing. It tells us, no, not now. I'll wait. And so then we stay behind that closed door, and that door becomes its own wall, right? And so to be able to move from that stuckness, from behind that door, we have to create space for hope and pleasure. Pleasure is a doorway to hope, right? Giggling. I love to think about, so this last summer, I got to spend a week at one of my favorite places where I go almost every year to present workshops at Rancho La Puerta Destination Spa in Tecate, Mexico. And if I think about what this past year represented to me, it was pleasure. I got to see it in myself. I got to see it in the people that I was spending time with, who were spending more time laughing, who were spending more time honoring what pleasure felt like. And that is a doorway. Pleasure, and pleasure is also a loaded word. I love to push my unleashers on pleasure. In fact, in this next round, we're about to spend an entire month on pleasure. And they're like, where are we going to go? You know what? We could go any of the places, and why would any of that be bad? But we tend to hide behind that word. Anyway, I'm not going to go there now, other than to say pleasure is a gateway, it is a door, and we have to give ourselves permission to experience it, to honor it, to know how it feels in our body, not in our brain, right? Your brain can be like, ooh, this is pleasurable. That doesn't mean anything. When you can feel it in your body, it takes on a different, yes, sensation. But even think about, some of you may have seen in an email, I talked this weekend about baklava. And I have more to say about baklava coming very soon. But on Saturday night, my husband and I ordered carry out from a Turkish restaurant, and I added baklava to our order for dessert. We turned we could have just eaten baklava out of the styrofoam cup. I put it on, and I was like, no, we have to honor this baklava because I was so excited about this baklava. And by the time I took that first bite, my body was already attuned to the feeling of pleasure. There was no way that piece was going to taste yucky. I could literally already feel the delight, the deliciousness of it before I even took my first bite. And it wasn't from my brain. Yeah, my brain was excited, but my body was ready. It was receptive, right? And then I took that first bite, and I could just feel the gooey goodness of it, right? Like dripping down. That's the type. Pleasure can come from so many ways, but it's giving ourselves permission to feel it. So we've got being in our body, we have priorities and boundaries, and we have hope and pleasure, and cultivating those. And stop noticing when we're telling ourselves now isn't a good time. And when you hear yourself saying that, circle the wagons on hope and pleasure. Okay. Number 4, dreaming. Now, this baklava story is really interesting because what happened when I tasted that baklava? My husband and I started thinking back to when we were in Istanbul a few years ago and how we happened upon this baklava bakery at 11 p.m. and it was bustling with people. I mean, bustling. It was packed with people. And we had this amazing, amazing baklava. So I sat there as we were eating our baklava, savoring it. And I started dreaming about this trip we had taken. And I was like, oh my gosh, how amazing would it be if that place in Karakoy in Istanbul delivered, right? It was a dream. It was silly. Like, that's not real. But I gave myself permission to name it, to claim how fabulous that would feel. Right? Dreaming can be as simple as that. If you watched Friday's video, you heard the story about how I basically dreamed of this painting. Friends, Guess what I just got notification of from DHL today? My baklava from Istanbul is on the way. It's going to be here on Friday because I gave myself permission to name an illogical idea, a dream, a desire. And then I got curious and released all expectations. Zero expectations, right? Was I going to be sad if they didn't deliver? No, because in my brain it was crazy. And it's coming. There are going to be huge celebrations on Friday and all week long. Because here's the other piece. I'm not going to wait until Friday until this baklava gets here to celebrate. I'm going to celebrate this all week long because I named something that would feel amazing. So, so this starts to move us in the direction of, okay, but how do we take action, right? The state of being. You see, like, right? A, we don't wait. B, we tap into this feeling, like we immerse ourselves in this feeling. Okay, have I made my point very, very clear about dreaming? And then the last step to move into this now what is to be purposeful and intentional. Meaning, right? Why? This thing that you want to open the doorway to, why does that matter to you in your life? Why is it important? One of the things that I think happens is sometimes we open the doors to things that aren't ours to open the doors to. Meaning, they are things that somebody else has talked about. They might be fabulous, but they might be somebody else's dream. It might be somebody else's dream for us, or it might be somebody else's dream that you saw on Facebook or on Instagram or on Pinterest or at the bus stop or walking down the street. And sometimes those dreams become ours. Let me be very clear. But we have to figure out why it matters to us. That's the first step. And then we get to cultivate that intentionally and purposefully every single day. So this is where this question of, okay, but am I always just in the energy, in the state of being? No, but we let the action be driven by that state of being rather than our brain. Okay, so we let the being drive the doing. And how do we do that? Well, we sit with the feeling. We allow ourselves to steep in that feeling frequently, maybe even daily, right? We get really, really clear. And then we notice, like we get to know that feeling. We connect with it. We develop a relationship with that feeling. We explore it from multiple sides. I like it when I really tap into that feeling state. I think about a symbol or an image or a word that goes along with it that will help me access that on any given day. Right? So I've actually already named. So I like doing a word of the year. Sometimes I do like a word of the month. I'm all about words, apparently, which right here I am talking about the body. But my most powerful words are the words that came from inside me, from my body. So my word, it's really a phrase for 2022, is the Ripple Project. Because when I think about the feeling that I am opening the doorway to, it feels like a ripple. And I can visualize what that looks like. Right? I know when you drop something in and it creates ripples. Right? I know exactly what that feels like, what that looks like. And so this is the place that's that attunement place. And we spend time getting to know that. And then from that place of that feeling, then we consider, okay, what is one step I could take today to move in that direction? You could even, for those of us that are goal setters, right, think big, think long term. But when you start naming steps and things, we always get to check in with, is this aligned? Does it still match up with the energy? Because sometimes that shifts. So rather than being like, oh, I said I was going to do this, I must do this, check, check, check. Because sometimes you take a step, you take a second step, and you realize maybe those aren't the steps. Maybe you're not, there's a disconnect with the feeling because the brain starts to take over. So without going too deep into that, I really want to impress upon you this idea that your actions, yeah, they matter, right? But the most powerful actions that you can take to open your doorways come from that place of being home in your body, of connected to what your wisdom wants you to know. So I'm going to pause there and ask questions, thoughts, what comes up for you? Do you have an image or a feeling, a symbol that symbolizes, how's my words, friends, today? This is what happens when you wake up at 3:30 in the morning and only sleep on and off after that, apparently. But do you have a word or a symbol or an image that comes to mind when you think about this thing that you're opening the door to? Put it in the comments. As you are thinking about that, these 5 steps on this pathway are invitations to just access points. So you can always check in with, have I gotten into my body recently around this? Right? Is there anything that I can reprioritize or a boundary that can be strengthened? Have I played with pleasure and hope? Where am I cultivating that? Am I still allowing myself to dream and name my desires and claim them? Like, actually, because here's the thing about claiming your desires. Let me just backtrack. We name them, and then sometimes we're not very good at receiving them, right? We make excuses for it, or we try to self-sabotage, or so many things can happen. Even when this painting got here last week, I spent a good half of that first day just staring at it, feeling like, oh my gosh, it's here. It wasn't supposed to be here, until one day when my brain went to all the places, instead of just receiving the magnificence of this painting and the energy that it represents, right? Which, there are ripples in the water, for the record. Okay. So one of the questions that I want to leave you with that can help you access, especially when you start feeling a little stuck, or when you do, like a lot of us, to start noticing what isn't working, is the question that I use pretty much at the beginning of everything that I do with all of my clients. Everything, like 90%, is what is working? What can you celebrate? What progress can you give yourself credit for? Okay, that was 3 questions, but they're all connected. They're based on what is working. When you are feeling like a door has closed and you want it to be open, come back to this question of what is working and allow yourself to really be there for a moment. And that seems so flippant and easy. It gets to be that easy sometimes. And it's not going to change the circumstances of what isn't working, but it will remind you of what is. And that is very, very often the very first step. Okay? So I've given you lots of ideas in terms of thinking about, okay, how do you integrate where we spent last week into your daily life? How do you bring this forward? These are the ways. And for those of you that are like, yeah, but these don't sound like ways, they sound just more like life coachy things. And yeah, maybe they do. But what I want you to know is that these are practices that you get to develop for yourself. I can help you develop them. It's what I do. But the key here is that deciding to choose to open the door every day. And then choosing a practice that will help you. Maybe on some days it's just opening the door. Maybe on some days it's looking through the door. Maybe on other days it's taking the first steps or eventually getting way beyond the door, right? But we get to choose to open the door to our joy every single day. That's the kicker, right? Will you stay in what's not working, in the stuckness, in the grieving, and waiting for the other shoe to drop? Or will you choose to celebrate until the day you can't? That's the key to the now what, is knowing that there isn't certainty. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that, because, right? But there isn't. And so we get to show up anyway. And we honor our progress as we go. All right. So I've given you so many things to think about. My homework for you today is to consider perhaps one step along this path. Maybe it's staying in your body and continuing to cultivate those practices. Maybe it's noticing where your priorities are and boundaries. Maybe it's really connecting to hope and pleasure. Maybe it's giving yourself permission to dream and name your desires. Maybe it's this idea of considering the purpose, the intention behind whatever it is. Choose one, just one, to play with today and this week. That's your homework. That's how you begin to bring this forward, to integrate. So if you already know which one of those you think you want to play with, put it in the comments. If not, I would love for you to reach out. You can come back here, you can leave a comment here, you can email me to know which of those feels most important to you as a first step, as a ripple. Sometimes I think about it as dominoes, right? It's that first one. Okay, in just a second, I'm going to pick the name of the winner who won not just one, but 2 tickets, one for you and one for a bestie, to the Unleash You virtual retreat on Saturday, December 11th. And it's okay if you can't be there live. I would love for you to be there live, but everything will be recorded. And so actually I have 2 pieces of homework before I do that. The first is to choose a focus, one of these places on this path, to intentionally cultivate this week, today and this week. The second is to consider what support would be helpful to you to continue along this path. Because look, you can do all of this on your own. You absolutely can. And I also know that it is much more powerful, efficient, when you are supported by not just, honestly, a coach, but also by a community that is working on similar things for themselves, because you learn from one another. And so if you are thinking in terms of, all right, in terms of this now what, you have 2 ways to connect with me in terms of your now what. The first is to schedule a discovery call. This is a 30-minute free conversation between you and I to figure out, where has your wall been? What door is it that you want to make? And what would it take for you to get there? Meaning, thinking through the types of supports that you might need, might benefit from. That might look like, if I hear something that I can help with, I'll offer that. If I hear something that I know a great resource for, I'll share that with you. But it is a conversation to help you think about what supports would be helpful. So that's a discovery call. It's 30 minutes, you and me. So you can schedule that. The second option to set yourself up for success is to grab a spot at the Unleash You virtual retreat, which is an entire day dedicated to really tapping into your desires, your hopes, your dreams, and then creating a vision to bring that forward. So we spend the morning with a lot of yin yoga and guided meditation, visualization, and breath work. We begin to consider, we start with gratitude for, frankly, 2021 and everything that you have played with so far. And then we move into vision boarding in the afternoon, and you leave with a vision board and steps to then bring this all forward. Oh my goodness, Mary Beth, I'm so glad. Yes, pick one to focus on. You cannot get it wrong. You cannot get it wrong. And Mary Beth, you have already set yourself up for success in a lot of ways. So there you go. So if you're curious about the Unleash You virtual retreat, reach out. You can grab a spot. I will put links here in the comments to both the discovery call and the retreat. They'll also be in your email if you're participating in the challenge via email as well. But just know those are two really good options. One is a conversation. One is spending the day really, really prioritizing. So you will spend it in your body. You'll think about priorities and boundaries. You'll tap into hope and pleasure. You'll dream, and then you'll get really purposeful about how to bring it all forward. So that day combines all of those things. And it is one of my very favorite virtual retreats. And if you're thinking, there's no way I can spend a day on Zoom, friends, I got to tell you, it is my great honor and delight to make Zoom retreats a thing of fabulousness. And if you can't be there either all day or at all on that day, I don't usually say this because I like to create community. I like to create connection. That's the point of being there live, is that it's not just about you being in your own body and brain. There's something that comes from the group. But if you know that you can't, but you still really want to access the content, the ideas, the practices, the structures, sign up. Register for it anyway. You'll get all the videos and everything you need to then be able to do it on your own time. But commit to yourself that you're going to do that. All right. So those are my two homeworks for you. 1, pick a focus to cultivate this week. 2, consider the support that would help you really integrate this and have this be something that you do just beyond this challenge, whether that's a discovery call with me or signing up for the Unleash You virtual retreat. There are other options, but those are the two best ones for now. Then we can talk about the other options, if there are some. All right. Thank you all for spending last week and today with me. What a delight to get to kick off the week with you all. If you have questions, please reach out. I hope that I haven't done the giveaway yet. You're all waiting. I haven't done it yet. Oh my gosh. All right. Here we go. I know she's not here live today, but Wendy, you get to come to Jupiter looked up to congratulate you. Wendy, you get to attend with a friend the Unleash You virtual retreat. So reach out. I'll send you all the details. And if you are all curious about it, you know what to do, as I'm about to lose my voice. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Please, please reach out if you have questions, if you have thoughts. Yes, congratulations, Wendy. And several of you are already going to be at the Unleash You virtual retreat. So I'm so excited to see all of you there and to just get to continue to explore these practices. Just because we finished the challenge and the masterclass doesn't mean we stop talking about these things. So look for more nudges coming soon. And I also have another little piece of information for you. Thank you so much, Dasha. I have a surprise for you that I did want to tell you about, since some of you are still here. All the nudges from this week, all of them, even today, are from the Inhabit Your Joy book of nudges that is going to be coming out in late January, early February. So you just got a whole bunch of excerpts. And I am so delighted to get to share that with you. So if you loved these pieces, Jupiter is like, yes, if you love them, you're going to love this book. In the book, we covered the 6 shapes. The other nudges are not physical shapes, yin shapes, but they are other types of nudges. But they are the questions and the things, but you basically just got a preview of the book. So if you loved it and loved everything, I would love to hear that as well. The stories that you got in the emails, all of those things were directly from the book. So you're welcome. I know, it brings me delight to say that, to share it with you. And so stay tuned. It's coming. All right, friends, have a delightful rest of your Monday, an amazing week. If you celebrate Thanksgiving, enjoy that time. I am focused on celebration all week long of just allowing myself. And so celebration to me feels like this. And actually, when I visualized it this morning in my meditation, it was me twirling with my arms up. I have a chair that does that, so there you go. But that's what I'm going to be connecting with the energy of all week. And I will share the baklava pictures with you on Friday when it comes. Don't worry. Have a fabulous day, everybody. Let me know if you have questions and grab your spot either in a discovery call or at the Unleash You virtual retreat. I would love, love, love to connect with you in either place or both. You could also do both. Oh my gosh, you could do both. I know. And Mary Beth, this Turkish restaurant in Centerville, it's called Lizette, Lezzet, I think. It's in Centerville. They have delicious baklava. And I can also share with you the name of the place that I ordered from in Istanbul, and it can be delivered to your door from Istanbul. Amazing. Not even crazy expensive. I mean, it, not nothing, but not. So I'm just saying, I have the baklava hookup. Let me know. All right, friends, have a fabulous, fabulous day. Mwah. Thank you for spending this morning with me. Yum, right? Yes, or yes, both ways. All the both ways. Yes, yes, yes. I like how you think. All right. Bye, everybody.